When you think of Halloween, the first colors that probably come to mind are black and orange. But today, I'm showing you my creative color combination for this spooky season. The main colors I'm using are Imperial Purple, Moonglow, and Rare Green Earth from Daniel Smith, along with touches of yellow, orange, and some opaque inks for decorations. And if you don't have these colors, don't worry, I'm listing all the pigments they're made from below in the description section. For Imperial Purple or any granulation colors, if you want a thick consistency and a nice color separation effect, I highly recommend using paint directly from the tube if you have it, or choosing a paint that's easy to rehydrate. I'm about to start painting now and I'll show you the difference it can make. Firstly, I'm washing the whole page with clean water, and then I'm adding some Imperial Purple to the top and bottom parts of the page. If I used a dried paint that isn't well rehydrated, it may look a little pale like this. However, if I use a thick paint directly from the tube, you'll see how saturated it becomes, just like the color looks now. Then I'm using a brush with a little water to add a bit more moisture to the purple area, and this will help this granulation color to separate into multiple tones. And if you want to add some water like this, you should do it immediately right after the purple was painted, before the paper gets too dry. Next, I'm adding a small amount of rare green earth from Daniel Smith here and there. This color disperses well, but it can be staining and difficult to lift, so avoid adding too much. You can also feel free to use another similar color. Personally, I found that granulation colors are perfect for creating a spooky vibe. That's why I used 3 different granulation colors for this painting. And then before the painting is dry, I'm adding some Moonglow from a Daniel Smith tube to add some more depth to the painting. Now the paper is still a little damp. I'm using a clean dry thin brush from Black Velvet to create some light circles by lifting the colors. Do not use a napkin to help lift the colors if you find the circles are not light enough, as the rest of the paper is not dry and a napkin might accidentally mess up other areas. Instead, to make it clearer, just wash the brush and dry it to ensure the brush head is clean, and go over the circles again to make the lifted area brighter. And next, I'm waiting until it's 100% dry, and then loading some thick Moonglow paint to the brush. I'm adding only a little just to ensure the paint is going to be smoothly painted on the paper. Now I'm painting a thick tree in the forefront. You can start with the background trees, but I prefer painting the foreground ones first to help balance the whole piece, as I don't use drafts or reference pictures when creating ideas. If you're worried about the colors getting muddy when overlapping the darker trees, you can definitely paint the lighter ones first. Just move the video progress bar to see the lighter background trees I painted later. So now back to your painting. Since this color is very dark and thick, you don't need to worry about getting the ideal shape on the first try if you're concerned about painting it without a pre-drawn draft. We can start with a thin stroke and refine the shape later. The branches I'm painting in a zigzag shape, which is a unique feature for Halloween. This process is actually quite easy and flexible. And then I'm painting another two trees using the same consistency of paint and slightly altering their directions to make them all look natural. Whilst waiting for these to get 100% dry, I'll rinse the brush to dilute the paint, which I will use for the background chase. Before painting, ensure there's not too much water in the brush head. We can absorb some excess using a napkin, otherwise your stroke will appear much thicker on paper. I'm now painting the background chase. It's the same process as the foreground chase, only painting smaller and with fewer branches. It will make them look like they're disappearing and bleed into the background. And when I finish painting each tree, I wait for a few seconds, and then I use a clean napkin to lift some color. As we can see, this tree now appears softer and bigger. I'm going to paint 5 trees in the back in total, and each tree will become smaller and taller than the last. Now I'm going to switch to a fine brush. I'm using it to add detailed tips to the branches of the foreground trees. Now I'm painting a pumpkin. Without a pencil outline, we can paint a simple shape and roughly mark where the eyes and mouth will go. It might look a bit funny at first, but it saves time on drafting. Then I'll add Moonglow color to fill in the rest of the area. Now I'm just waiting for it to dry. In the meantime, I'm going to paint a tiny cute spider dangling from a tree branch. You'll want to use a very fine liner brush for all the details. For the spider silk, I'm using a brush that's not even a watercolor brush. It's basically very similar to those for painting nails, etc. It usually has a nylon brush head, and these brushes are quite affordable. Now the pumpkin is almost dry. I'm using an expired water-based eyeliner brush. It's also a very cheap kind that I'm currently experimenting with for painting. I'm now using it to add some highlights. You can also use any opaque paint or highlighter you have on hand. It's best if it's water-based as it blends well with watercolor. And then I'm adding some dark Moonglow color to soften the ends of the highlight lines. Now I'm mixing yellow with some white ink to paint the eyes and mouth. Try not to add any water at this step as it might dilute the white ink too much and affects its opacity. Now we can let it dry. When it dries, you might notice the color looks a bit muddy. That's because it's not opaque enough to cover the background. We can simply add another layer of the yellow watercolor and white ink mixture. Finally, I'm painting some decorative elements like bats and colorful dots.